Just because your neighbor has 3 basement suites doesn't mean you can too. And yet that's exactly what a lot of people in BC now believe. In this video, I'm breaking down what's actually allowed when it comes to multiple suites on one property and why one bad assumption could cost you your financing, your insurance, or even your home sale. I've seen buyers walk away from deals and sellers panic, all because they didn't understand the difference between a suite that exists and a suite that's legal. Yes, 2024 changed the rules around how many residences you could have on a single property, but it didn't erase something called the BC Building Code, and that's where people are getting burned. So if you're thinking of adding a suite to your property, or buying a home with one, or selling soon, this video could save you thousands.
You only get one chance to buy or sell your next home. Let's get it right.
Hey, worth mentioning, my name is Darren, a real estate professional since 2007, serving the South Surrey, White Rock, and surrounding municipalities. This YouTube channel is dedicated to everything about those areas, as well as anything going on with BC real estate, or just helping you become a better home buyer or home seller. In fact, we meet people just like you from this channel all the time looking to relocate in the area or get out of the area. So if you're looking for someone who can give you local advice and the best guidance to help you be successful with zero pressure, you can book a time to speak with me and my team in the description of this video below. And together we'll help make sure that you get everything you need to help your home buy or home sale be a complete success. All right, so you've probably heard someone say, it's legal now. You can have up to 4 suites on a single family lot. And technically, they're not wrong, but they're also completely missing the whole point. There's a massive difference between what's allowed by zoning and what's actually legal under the BC Building Code. And the problem, most people treat these like they're the same thing. Someone sees a listing with 2 basement suites and assumes this is great. I can do the same thing. But behind the scenes, that second suite might not be permitted. In fact, the first one might not even be permitted. And it also might not be up to code and might not be insurable. The misunderstanding usually sounds something like this. I can have multiple suites now. The province said so. But what that really means is I haven't checked with the city and haven't looked at the BC Building Code, and I'm about to make a really expensive mistake. So let's break that down, starting with what actually changed in 2024 and why it's created even more confusion than clarity. So think back in time here. It wasn't that long ago, but in 2024, BC introduced one of the biggest housing reform packages we've ever seen. Most single family lots can now be redeveloped up to 4 homes, and in transit-oriented areas, that number goes to 6. This was part of the province's response to the housing crisis. They passed legislation forcing municipalities to upzone single-family lots to allow up to 4 units on most urban lots and up to 6 units near frequent transit. And here's the kicker. Cities were given deadlines to bring their zoning into compliance. So this isn't theoretical, this is real, and it's happening right now. So when people hear this, the natural reaction is great. I can have 3 suites in my house, or maybe you have 3 suites in your house and they're legal now. This is great. And that belief, it didn't come out of nowhere. People in Surrey, and especially in areas like Clayton in Cloverdale, have been buying homes for years with a basement suite, a main unit, and maybe even a coach house out back. Whatever way you skin it, a primary residence that has an unauthorized suite, whether it's 1, 2, 3, there might be a coach home, it all kind of mixes together. And this is where understanding the rules really gets important. So when the new zoning rules hit, it felt like confirmation. People are saying, see, I knew this was allowed, but here's the problem. Zoning tells you what's theoretically permitted. The BC Building Code tells you what's actually legal. Take those coach house setups in Clayton. A lot of them were built during what I'll generously call a flexible enforcement era. Some were done with permits like the coach homes, but the basement suites, because at the time they weren't allowed. The coach homes were planned for, they were legal, but the basement suites were not. And those basement suites, to be honest, are no different than a lot of basement suites you'll encounter in most communities across the Lower Mainland. They weren't originally there, weren't in the zoning, and they weren't planned for when the property was built. And what this means is that many do not meet today's code. So just because you've seen homes like that or even lived in one doesn't mean that your lot, your home, or your plan qualifies today. Yes, the zoning rules may have changed, but the code, it hasn't gone anywhere. And here's where things get real. Even if your property is zoned for multiple homes, the BC Building Code decides whether those suites are actually legal to build or to use. And spoiler, just slapping up a few walls and calling it a suite, that's not going to cut it. Here's what the code actually requires for a legal secondary suite: fire separation between units, safe and separate exits with proper egress, a ceiling height of at least 6'11", smoke and CO alarms that are interconnected, soundproofing, ventilation, independent heating controls, and this is a big one: permits. It needs a full permit history to prove it was inspected and approved. Now, here's where a lot of people get tripped up. You can have a beautiful basement renovation that looks totally legit, but if it's missing just one of those things, say a fire-rated door or a proper egress window, it's technically not a legal suite. The code doesn't care how nice it looks. It cares if it's safe, inspected, and built to spec. And just because a suite exists doesn't mean it's grandfathered in or exempt. If it wasn't built legally to begin with, it's still considered unauthorized. So yes, your lot right now might be zoned for 3 or 4 homes, but every one of them still has to pass the same building rules. And getting that wrong, that's where things go sideways fast. Now, for fun, here's where it gets even muckier, because not all suites are created equal. You've probably seen listings say things like unauthorized suite or non-conforming suite, or sometimes they just don't say anything at all. And most people just assume that means it's fine. I don't have paperwork, but those words actually mean something, and they mean very different things. So let's break it down a little bit. A legal suite means it was built with permits, inspected, and meets both zoning and the building code. An unauthorized suite usually means it exists, but it wasn't built to code, wasn't permitted, or fails on something like fire safety. Or sometimes maybe it does pass all those things, but it just hasn't been inspected. A non-conforming suite might have been legal when it was built, but no longer matches their current zoning. Some of these are protected, and some aren't. And here's why this all matters. If you own a home with an unauthorized suite and the city finds out, especially if someone complains or there's a safety issue, they can force you to remove it or vacate it immediately. This isn't just about permits. It's about safety, fire separation, exits, emergency response. I've seen homeowners renting out suites for years and then suddenly having to evict their tenants, tear out the walls, and spend tens of thousands of dollars bringing it up to code. And if you're buying, you might assume that rental income counts towards your mortgage, but if the suite isn't legal, some lenders won't use that income. This isn't about scaring you, it's about being realistic, because calling something a mortgage helper doesn't make it legal or safe. Real quick, while we're on the topic about buying a home, whether it's in the lower mainland, in the areas that we serve of, Surrey, South Surrey, White Rock, wherever it may be, anywhere in BC for that matter, you're going to want to grab a copy of our free PDF in the description of this video below called 21 Grants and Incentives Available for Home Buyers and Homeowners. It is packed with provincial, municipal, and federal incentives and rebates that are buried, difficult to find, and we have broken them down and made them easily available and digestible so you can find out how much you may qualify for. You don't want to leave free money on the table anytime, and certainly this is not the time to do that. So if you'd like to grab a copy, you can get it right now in the description below. So I digress a little bit. Now, if you're buying, selling, or thinking about adding a suite, this stuff matters more than ever. Let's start with buyers. You see a house with 2 basement suites. Rental income looks amazing. Listing says unauthorized suite, and your agent says, hey, everybody does it. And honestly, they're not wrong about that. A lot of lenders will still count that income if the suite is self-contained and in livable shape. But here's the catch. Not all lenders treat unauthorized suites the same. Some want to see a proper kitchen and a separate entrance. Some require appraiser confirmation. And some, especially if there's no fire separation or no egress, will reject the income entirely. So yes, you might be fined or you might hit a financing wall at the very last minute. Now, sellers, let's say you've got an unauthorized suite, bring in $1,500 a month. You list your home, buyers love it, but the appraiser flags a code issue, or the buyer's lender won't count the income, or the insurer won't cover claims related to that unit. And even if none of that happens, the next buyer might just hesitate because they don't know what they're actually getting into. And then there's insurance. If there's a fire, a flood, or even an injury, and the damage is linked to an unpermitted suite, your insurance provider could deny the claim, especially if it wasn't disclosed. So yes, you can own an unauthorized suite. You can rent it out. You can even get financing on it from most lenders, but you need to know where the risk starts and ends, because the consequences land on you. Now, with all this talk of zoning changes and 4-unit allowances, what if you want to add another suite right now? Here's the reality. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. Yes, there's properties, lots being rezoned right now for 3 or 4 units, but that doesn't mean that your property is ready for it or that it'll be easy or affordable. Here's what actually determines whether you can add more suites: lot size and layout, parking and servicing capacity, fire separation, proper entrances and exits, and of course, the full permitting and inspection process. And depending on your city and how fast they're adapting, this could be smooth or it could be an absolute nightmare. Financially, though, most builders will tell you legalizing or adding new suites right now is more expensive than people think, especially if you're trying to wedge a third unit into a house that was never designed for it. So the real question isn't, can I add another suite? It's, can I do it legally, safely, and without setting myself up for a mess later? Now, let's say that you already have a basement suite and it's been rented for years or it came with the house. It's not on title, no permits, and you're wondering, is this going to be a problem in the future? Well, here's the good news. You are certainly not alone. There's thousands of homes all across the lower mainland that have the exact same thing that you do. These are unauthorized suites. Some are harmless, but some are pretty sketchy. So what should you do? Well, first, figure out what you actually have. Check city records. Was a permit ever pulled? Is the suite listed on your property file or tax roll? Then get a qualified home inspector or a contractor to check it against the current BC building code. Sometimes the fix is simple, sometimes it's not. Finally, ask the city what it takes to legalize it. Some municipalities have programs to help, and others require a full retrofit. Now, what if you want to leave it as is? Well, if someone files a complaint or there's a fire safety issue, the city can force you to shut it down immediately. You could be required to stop renting it, remove parts of the kitchen, or even rip out entire sections to comply. And if you're planning to sell, that suite could be flagged by an appraiser, an inspector, or a cautious buyer and could impact your price or even derail the deal. So, no, it's not the end of the world if your suite isn't legal, but the sooner you understand your position, the better chance you have of protecting your income, your resale value, and your peace of mind. So here's the bottom line. Yes, BC changed the zoning rules in 2024. And yes, you might be allowed to have more units, but no, that doesn't automatically make your suite legal. Zoning gives you permission, the building code gives you rules, and your city decides how it all plays out. Whether you're buying, selling, or planning a reno, treat suites like any other structure. Build it properly, get it inspected, and make sure it's actually legal, because this isn't just about rent, it's about safety, financing, resale, and liability. So before you buy a home with a suite, rent one out or start demo day, ask questions, get the facts, and don't rely on what your neighbor said, what your agent guessed, or what the listing sort of implied. And hey, if you're still not familiar with the zoning changes from 2024, the ones I've been talking about this entire video, we did a video that literally blew up on that very subject. Tens of thousands of views, a flood of comments and DMs, and a ton of people realizing they had no idea these changes even happened. Good news is, if you're curious, that video is coming up next, and you don't want to miss it. The residents of this neighborhood don't know it yet, but this neighborhood is going to be completely upended over the coming years about new zoning regulations that are taking effect all across British Columbia.